and people disappear and all sorts of stuff. I keep going right up the chain of command to the President of the United States or the Queen, and I make sure they get a copy. And I always record the criminal complaints, because after 30 days it becomes public policy, like a regulation. And this is something that I happen to know because I work in aviation, okay? And when you record something into the county recorder's office, you're making your own law, literally, you are. And after 30 days it becomes public policy. And that's what all of these regulations, okay, if you look it up, any regulation is public policy. And so all of these regulations are public policy, and you can make your own public policy, and so it's very powerful recording it. I send them a notice and demand, and I usually get no response at all. That means they've acquiesced, and if there's something that you're saying that's not true, they have a duty to point it out. One of the first documents I sent out was to the Pinal County Recorder in Arizona, and she sent a very short letter back, said, thank you for your document. I put it on file for future reference, and she signed it personally, and it said, most respectfully. And in my opinion, that's a perfect response. Okay? A judge in Texas, Johnson County, okay, this was a Johnson County judge in Texas, sent me a certified copy of his oath of office and surety bond. I mean, that's a perfect response. That's like saying, I stand naked before you, you know? And I would never hurt someone like that. I mean, that's honorable man, you know. Edmonton City Police sent me a letter acknowledging receipt. That's a good response too. Look at this. This is it right here. And it says here, this letter, that your letter is received. I've reviewed the contents of your letter. Note that there's no articulated complaints. Can you see that? Can you see that? Anyways, I note there's no articulated complaints of misconduct or complaints of service with respect to any members of the Edmonton Police Service in relation to policies and procedures. As such, this matter is classified as information only, is now concluded. In other words, I sent them a notice and demand, and they're saying, we accept your notice, right? And we don't dispute a word in it. You see what I'm saying? I mean, that's what they're saying. That's perfect. That's a perfect response. U.S. Solicitor General sent me a letter acknowledging my notice and demand, and that's the one that I passed out here. I don't know if you've all seen it or not. That's got, if you notice, my name, okay, Glenn Winningham, House of Fern, zip code exempt. Okay, this is exactly how I told it, how I put it in there, and I tell them that unless you intend to be guilty of mail fraud, it shall be shown exactly like it, and they did it exactly like it. But notice, dear Mr. Winningham, okay, they know the law. I can't tell you how many times I get letters like this back. Dear Mr. Winningham, okay, the family name at common law is never mentioned. Do you guys know what the Queen's last name is? Does anybody know what the Queen's last name is?
Windsor.
Yeah, okay, so you were at the last presentation. But that's the point, is most people do not know. If you ever want to watch something interesting, you ought to, if you ever get a chance to watch the convening of the Imperial Parliament on TV, you ought to watch that sometime, because it's very interesting. Okay? Because what happens is the Queen goes up to this, the downtown 1 square mile of London, there's a wall around it. It's called the City of London. Okay, and there's a wall around it, and there's several gates, and one of the gates is called Temple Bar, and it's like a big oak door that's probably about 8 or 9 feet tall, and it's got and it's closed. Okay, the Queen's going into downtown London. It's the convening of the Imperial Parliament. Queen is going in there. That gate's closed, and there's a little square foot thing in it, right? It's a small door, and it's closed. So she goes up and beats on the door with her scepter, and the Lord Mayor of London's on the other side, and he opens it up and he says, what do you want? To the Queen of England. Does anybody know the significance of that? No? William the Conqueror never did conquer downtown London. Okay? So that's foreign territory. That's foreign jurisdiction. So she has to get permission to go into that territory. And that actually is now owned and operated by the Rothschild family, actually the Vatican. Okay?
Would that be like Washington, D.C., where it's its own little country?
Exactly. And so, but it's owned and operated by the Vatican. If you look in the concessions to the Pope, okay, 1213, okay, it says in there that King John gives England, the Kingdom of England and Ireland, to the Pope. He literally gives it to him, and he agrees to pay tribute. You know, I think it's, I don't know how many pounds, but he agrees to pay tribute to the Vatican every year. And for England, so much for England and so much for Ireland, right? And then if you think about it, then the Magna Carta, right? If you read through the Magna Carta, it's got martial law written all over it, right? So they were attempting to collect this debt that they were supposed to pay to the Vatican from the people and using martial law to get it. And the people rose up in rebellion and stuck a sword to his throat and said, "Here, king, you know, we don't want you doing this stuff anymore." And you read through it and it's got martial law written all over it. And so, anyways, you know, obviously they had to go into bankruptcy because after that they couldn't collect their money. You see what I'm saying? And so now the Vatican now owns and operates the City of London. Okay, and there's actually a YouTube video that I sent out that talks about that. It's called the Kingdom of the Empire or something like that, where it's the Vatican and the City of London and Washington D.C. Washington D.C. is a military arm, but it's all owned and operated by the Vatican. Anyways, so they understand common law. That's the point. Yeah, and this is a close-up. Negative responses. The Pennsylvania Attorney General sent me a letter making all sorts of legal determinations and presumptions and said they'd enforce their law. In March 2010, I filed a criminal complaint and sent it to the Chief Judge of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and also I sent a criminal complaint to the U.S. Attorney as well. And I think it was the U.S. Attorney that probably removed him, because on the February 22nd, I checked the Pennsylvania Attorney General's website, and it says, William H. Ryan Jr. becomes acting Pennsylvania Attorney General. And there he is, right there. That's the Pennsylvania Attorney General's website. And so I think I got his butt removed. The Ohio Director of Public Safety, Henry Guzman. Well, let's go back. Oh, I don't have the Pennsylvania Attorney General's name on there. Anyways, the Ohio Director of Public Safety, Henry Guzman, sent me a letter making all sorts of legal determinations. On August 2009, I filed a criminal complaint and sent it to the Ohio Attorney General and the Chief Judge of the Ohio Supreme Court and the State Bar and the U.S. Attorney. On the 22nd of February, I checked the Ohio Public Safety website, and it says that in January, Thomas P. Charles was appointed Ohio Director of Public Safety, and this Thomas P. Charles was former Ohio Inspector General. If anybody would know the law, it would be the Inspector General. And there we go. That's from the Ohio Department of Public Safety. I started doing this when I was going through a foreclosure in Arizona, and this is where it all started. I decided to arrest the auctioneer when they're selling my house on the courthouse steps. Well, they're committing a felony, right? They're converting my house to the foreign United States, from the land of Arizona to the foreign United States. Violating my rights under the color of law, that's a felony. Title 18, United States Code, Section 241 and 242. Anyways, when you witness a felony, you can make an arrest. That's the only time anyone, including the police, can lawfully make an arrest. I called the police to take custody of the felon, and the police started building a case against me for disturbing the peace. I saw that right away, so I sent notice and demands to the police officers, the chief of police, the town attorney, and the judge. And the town of Florence sent their straw man a summons. I attached the summons and notice and demand to an affidavit of criminal complaint, recorded it, and sent them a copy. I sent notice and demands to the Pinal County Sheriff, the Maricopa County Sheriff, the Casa Grande Chief of Police, Arizona Attorney General, and the Chief Judge of the Arizona Supreme Court, and the Phoenix Chief of Police. Now, you have to understand, the notice and demand, what happened is I sent them to the Pinal County Sheriff, the Maricopa County Sheriff, Casa Grande Chief of Police, and the Phoenix Chief of Police, okay? And then what I did is I also, the criminal complaint, remember I made the criminal complaint? Well, I sent the criminal complaint to the Arizona Attorney General and the Chief Judge of the Arizona Supreme Court, and I said, you got a bunch of criminals operating on the land in Florence, and I demand that you regulate your subordinates, right? So that's where those other ones came in. Anyways, what happened is they issued a warrant, okay, for the arrest of the straw man, And the reason I know they issued a warrant is because I called up the court, and the court told me they issued a warrant. And so I was at work one day, and I was working at U.S. Airways at the time, and they showed up in my work. And the reason I know they did is my coworkers told me there's a big guy here looking for you, right? Well, I figured, oh, I bet I know who that is. That was on Memorial Day weekend, 2005. Right? It's on a Friday, and so you have Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Most people don't know you can demand to see a judge right now, and so they're hoping to keep you in jail for 3 days and collect $70,000 from the International Monetary Fund, right? And so anyways, what happened is I left work early that day. I was preparing a lawsuit, okay? I was preparing a lawsuit, and I left work early that day, and I drove past a yellow van that was all caged in inside. And so they sent a bounty hunter. And this is the power of these notice and demands, okay? Think about it. Because I sent notice and demands to the Phoenix Chief of Police, the Maricopa County Sheriff. Well, they wouldn't have anything to do with it, okay? They could have come and showed up to execute that warrant. But they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. They had to send a bounty hunter. And I couldn't accept the oath of office of every bounty hunter. And so they went and they sent a bounty hunter. And I was already preparing a lawsuit, so I finished up the lawsuit and I filed it the following Tuesday. And then what I did, I took a week's vacation, right? So the following Tuesday I filed a lawsuit. Then I sent the Chief Judge of the Supreme Court of Arizona a notice and demand. And I said, basically, I hereby demand that you quash the warrant for the arrest of the strawman vessel. And I said, quote, because we all know that the corporate commercial agents, the police in brackets, are too stupid to tell the difference between a sovereign living soul and a strawman vessel, unquote. And I said, furthermore, Chief Judge, I filed this lawsuit. Here's the case number. You're named in it. And if you fail to quash the warrant for the arrest of the strawman vessel, it'll be further proof of your dereliction of duty to regulate your subordinates. And unquote. Anyways, so what happened is she quashed the warrant. Let's see, have we covered all of this? Okay. Yeah, and that's this right here. Here's the case number, and if you fail to quash the warrant, it will be further proof of your dereliction duty to regulate your subordinates. So after I went back to work, I finished my week off, and I went back to work, and they never ever come looking for me there again. And I've since learned that they didn't really quash the warrant. I think she issued a restraining order and told them to leave me alone, and that I'm not their straw man or something like that. I don't know what, but because the warrant is still out there, because I was in a car accident a year ago last Christmas in Arizona, and they pulled up this warrant, right? And what happened is it wasn't my fault. Some lady made an illegal left turn and broadsided me, and so the cops came and they pulled up this warrant, and they started making all sorts of threats and stuff like that. But the bottom line is they never arrested me. I heard them on the radio, and first of all, I told them when they stopped me, I said, "There's no such thing as a driver's license under Texas law," and I showed them my notices, right? And so then I heard them talking amongst each other, and they said, "Well, I guess there's no such thing as a driver's license under Texas law." Anyways, so then what happened is I heard them announcing on the radio how there was this warrant, and then they said, "But we don't want to extradite." Well, you have to understand that I was in Pinal County, okay? The town of Florence is the town that issued the warrant, okay? That's the county seat for Pinal County, okay? And it was the Pinal County Sheriff that came to the accident. So why would they have to extradite? I don't understand why they'd have to extradite, because I was in Pinal County. But they said, we don't want to extradite. And so they didn't arrest me or nothing, but they just made all sorts of threats. You need to take care of this. It's $350, and all I have to do is pay the $350. But, you know, I don't want to pay the $350, you know. It's the principle of the thing. Anyways, so what happened is they... in the lawsuit, what happened is the Attorney General responded for the Chief Judge in the lawsuit. And this is interesting too, because it was an Assistant Attorney General. And they said in the lawsuit that it was perfectly appropriate